One thing you find when you spend time around highly successful people is they have a razor thin gap between when they gather information and when they actually act on that information. And that action could be going further down the rabbit hole, really digging into the thing, doing the hard, unscalable action to go deeper on that topic. Most people have an enormous gap between the two. And it's probably the biggest impediment to changing your life is that you are getting all of your dopamine from the information gathering
That's right.
and none from the action. And so someone will go and watch an 8-hour Lex Fridman podcast with Elon Musk and feel very smart for all of the big words that they just learned. But what action did you actually go take? Or you will read a book, including my book, and not actually take an action against that. And so I think if there's one thing that you can do that actually changes your life, it is figure out the tiny action that you can take on the information that you just gathered. Because if you do the one small thing, what you realize is that momentum is the most powerful force in the world. And the one tiny little action, however imperfect it was, creates that little bit of momentum that starts to convince you that you can actually create change over a long period.
I agree with you, and I think that's a very insightful observation, that sliver, that small gap between I learned something and now I'm immediately trying, is a key word here. We'll see if it works. Let's kick the tires on this. But I want to dive into your thoughts here on this. I think that gap, I believe you're right. So most people, so you've got great producers, people that are high achievers, small gap, okay? The rest of the world, big gap, and I believe it's because of fear and doubt. And I'm going to throw pride in there too. So we can beat this around. What I mean by fear is they're afraid to try something, to do something, because something bad might happen. Doubt is, that works for Lex, or that works for Huberman, that works for Sahil, but it's not going to work for me. There's something special about them. That's the doubt. They don't believe something can happen. And then there's the pride factor, which is, I may be worried about what someone's going to say if I make some change in my life, even if it's small. What are my friends going to say? What will my parents say? I think that those are three big blockers to action. Thoughts on that? Add to, edit. Why do great people have such a small sliver?
Yeah, I think that for a lot of people, myself included, this has been a huge impediment to me in the past. As recently as a few months ago, I constantly wrestle with it, which is sometimes you avoid giving 100% effort because you're afraid of what will happen if you do give 100% and still fail.
Right.
And it's a self-protection mechanism. You're protecting your ego. You're protecting the identity that you hold for yourself. But it becomes self-rejection in the sense that you are not putting yourself out there to the point where you can actually experience the growth on the other side of it. And I think that is an impediment to a whole lot of action for people. It's this constant feeling of okay, I need to protect my own perspective on who I am and that I am a high achiever or that I am capable of doing these things. So I'm not going to take on the thing that might call that into question. The last one that you said is something that I think about a lot, that idea of sort of pride or even just the fear of judgment.
Yes.
And it's a quite well-known psychological phenomenon, the spotlight effect. It's this idea that we overestimate the degree to which other people are noticing or observing our actions or behaviors. It's kind of ironic to talk about the spotlight effect while we are quite literally under a spotlight right now. But it's really this idea that there are two big mistakes in life. One is worrying about what other people think about you. And the second is believing that other people think about you in the first place.
Yes.
Because no one is really thinking about you. Everyone is mostly just worried about themselves because naturally they're just, they might see you for a second, but then they move on to thinking about their own problem in their own life. And so many people are held back by that because they're scared that whatever action that they're taking is going to create this judgment from others. Oh, I can't put myself out there and share this content because what are people going to think? Or what if no one likes it? And then people are going to say that I'm not capable or that I'm not great. And it's very sad because there's a lot of talent out there that is held back by that exact thing. And, I've written this before, but I think that the worst prison in the world is having the talent and intelligence to achieve something great, but lacking the courage to go out and actually do it.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's so many people that are trapped in that.
How intentional are you, and what are some rubrics that you kind of guide yourself with as the people you let invest in you?
there is scientific evidence that the people you surround yourself with determine your outcomes. The Pygmalion effect is this psychological phenomenon where we rise or fall to the level of expectations that others have for us, the people that we surround ourselves with. So if you are around people who believe that you are capable of more, who are encouraging you to think bigger, who think very highly of you and think you are capable, you will rise to the level of those expectations.
So
similarly, if you're around people who belittle you, who laugh at your ambitions, who tell you to be more realistic, you will fall to the level of those expectations. So I cannot think of a single better reason to be very intentional about the people that you allow into your energy, into your space, and to be really deliberate about culling people that are not promoting that sort of healthy view of yourself. Unfortunately, that also means that you are going to incur periods of real loneliness as you are growing and changing, because you are going to have times when you start to shift your perspectives, your values start to change and develop, your journey starts to take you further away from your prior environment, and you are going to have changed, but the environment didn't. And so you're going to come to a time when you quite literally feel like you were almost speaking a different language than the people that you previously knew. And that can be a very lonely period because you have not yet attracted the new people that are going to be around you and supporting you and thinking big with you, but you have left the confines of the prior place. And that is just I view that as a tax, if you will, on personal transformation and growth. You have to be willing to pay that tax. It is sort of the cost of entry for changing your life in whatever way. But I think that, I view that Harvard study as probably the most important study of the last 100 years. Dr. Robert Waldinger, who's the current director, was one of the early readers of the book and is in there as well. And I think that's the most fascinating study. Just the fact that they found that the single greatest predictor of your physical health at age 80 was your relationship satisfaction at age 50. Yep. It was more important than your cholesterol, blood pressure, whether you drank, smoked, all of those things. It was how you felt about your relationships impacted your health more than anything else.
Yeah, I have gotten into it so deep, and the findings of it are so amazing. And I've thought many times. I was on a podcast recently where somebody asked me what advice I'd give young people, and I said, if you're not happy with your life, change the people in your life. Period. It's the quickest way to change your life. And whatever the issue is. If you don't have enough money, you get too much debt, start hanging around people who save money and invest, and there's that lifting effect.
Yeah, and people say that there's that common phrase that you're the average of the 5 people.
Jim Rohn made that famous. Yeah.
It's actually not true. It's even worse than that.
Yes.
Which is that the science now shows, there's developing science around the fact that you actually converge to the lowest common denominator.
That's correct.
In your group. Like they did this study with walking treadmills in an office where they had, they put walking treadmills out, and what happened was that everyone converged to the person that walked the least. And so the reminder there is that it's even more important than you think to be judicious about the people that you are allowing into your space and energy, because you are naturally going to converge to that person that is holding you back. I call it like the boat anchor. It's like pulling you back as you're trying to move forward.